Oh, good evening. This is Hownock Steve wishing you a very pleasant evening. And here is an article from RT. And of course, who else would be solving the problems of global capitalism but the Pope himself? I think it's kind of interesting. Anyway, let's just quickly pop over to this little article that I found because we need to establish a couple of things right from the very get-go. And of course, the other thing the Pope should be taking care of before he moralizes to anybody else about anything is the sexual abuse scandals of the Catholic Church, which are now just bubbling up everywhere. It's unbelievable. Now, for a person to stand up there and pontificate on what's morally right and what's morally wrong, when you have all of that baggage in your own chest of drawers, clean up your own backyard first and clean up the back of Vatican. That's another thing you need to do. So before we go any further, let's just establish the honest nature of the Vatican and the Vatican banking system. And here's a story from the Catholic World Report: Vatican cardinals linked to missing millions and financial scandal. And here they are. Butter wouldn't melt in their mouths. Some of them can't even stay awake. Vatican City, October 29th, 2019. An Italian dermatology hospital and two senior cardinals are at the centre of a burgeoning financial scandal involving a Vatican bank, the US Papal Foundation, and millions of euros from misallocated government funds. What in God's name? Pope Francis plans to fix global capitalism with the help of the Rothschilds, Rockerfellers, and MasterCard. And this is by Robert Bridge, and Robert Bridge is an American writer and journalist. He is the author of Midnight in the American Empire. And here he is, Pope Francis himself, under his Pope-mobile, keeping the rain off his head. The Vatican said it will partner with Fortune 500 companies to address various economic grievances, including inequality and environmental degradation. But is it really incumbent upon the Bishop of Rome to virtue signal? But whilst the Pope is talking about inequality, of course, the Vatican is the richest church in the world, and of course you can see by the pomp and circumstance that surrounds the Pope himself that he ain't doing too badly at all for a person who took a vow of perpetual poverty. Anyone entertaining hopes that planet Earth might escape the insanity of 2020 without any more mind-blowing stories may wish to fasten their seatbelts for a hard landing. At a time when a global outbreak has swept away millions of jobs and transformed a handful of global capitalists from merely wealthy to fantastically wealthy overnight, Pope Francis has decided to take sides in this epic battle. Any hunches what side that might be? Here's a hint. Much like the Vatican, it is immensely wealthy, influential, and acts like a government unto itself. Yes, you guessed it, instead of the poor and destitute, the meek who shall inherit the earth rigmarole, taking their rightful place alongside the Pope to fight against globalization on steroids, the Vatican has announced it will form a historic partnership with big business known as the Council for Inclusive Capitalism. You can't make this stuff up. And make no mistake, this is no mere talk shop, but rather a vast undertaking that involves more than $10.5 trillion in assets under management, companies with over $2.1 trillion of market capitalization, and 200 million workers in more than 163 countries. Capitalism has created enormous global prosperity, but it has also left too many people behind, led to the degradation of our planet, and is not widely trusted in society, said Lady Lynn Forrester Rothschild, founder of the Council and managing partner of Inclusive Capital Partners. This council will follow the warning from Pope Francis to listen to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor and answer society's demands for a more equitable and sustainable model of growth. You have got to be absolutely kidding me. I can't even believe that they had the nerve to write these words down. The Rothschilds are going to be listening to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. These people have created Every problem that you see on this planet right now, every piece of filth, every piece of pollution, every piece of degradation, every piece of destruction, every war, every person who is poor, every mine that pollutes a village or a town, every person who is hungry, or who has polluted water, or is working in filth and degradation, was created by these people. What are they talking about? How blind and how asleep do you have to be not to know that this is exactly what the situation is, and the condition that we are in now, the condition that they are going to save us from, is the condition that they couldn't see coming. Give me a break. And now the Pope is on board. Well, that just gives you a pretty good idea of where the Pope is coming from, doesn't it? And it certainly is not the poor and the disenfranchised. In other words, in an apparent act of divine intervention, the Rothschild family, whose wealth is estimated at 20 billion, although nobody really knows for sure, together with other famous brand names of globalization such as the Rockerfellers and MasterCard, would now take up the standard for the world's downtrodden. Who will be the first one to hold their breath? I tried to contain my skepticism, I really did, until I read a bit deeper into this contract between the Catholic Church and corporate power. Any guesses as to who will ensure the corporate chieftains live up to their end of the bargain? Known as the Guardians for Inclusive Capitalism, I kid you not, these 27 devout and morally outstanding individuals all hail from the golden 1%. Let's call them the Pope's 27 billionaire disciples. Really outstanding people such as President of the Rockefeller Foundation, Rav Shah, CEO of MasterCard, R.J. Banger, the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff, will now behave like good Samaritans carrying out the will of the Holy See around a ravaged, lockdown-wearied planet. Here is the catch. There is not a single Vatican cardinal or even a deacon on the list of guardians. So who will guard over the guardians? Yes, the corporate elite themselves. They must have read Donald Trump's Art of the Deal. My initial skepticism shot into overdrive when it became clear what acts of charity the council would promote. The guardians will hold themselves accountable, committing to a list of intended actions involving environmental, social and governance matters, Forbes reported. The guardians have said they plan to hire and promote more women, increase diversity hires, commit to clean energy by purchasing 100% renewable electricity, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, yada, yada, yada. And as I said, these people are responsible for the filthying of this planet. Forgive me, Father, but that sounds an awful lot like the controversial progressive platform being touted by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that's divided the United States down the middle. In other words, this unholy marriage has already alienated at least one half of the US population, who fear a Biden presidency will herald in an age of socialism in America. Meanwhile, it is hardly reassuring that these profit-driven individuals will be allowed to hold themselves accountable to take on unspecified social and governance matters and other initiatives, whatever those happen to be, and we can only guess. The reason for suspicion should be obvious. Aside from the absurdity of letting profit-driven corporations play guardian over themselves, we are now living in a time when these out-of-control behemoths are no longer content just to hawk their products to consumers. They have taken a serious stand on cultural and political issues, which many people find unacceptable, yet must bear silently with a smile. Using their profits from consumer spending, corporations such as Coca-Cola can run an extremely controversial Sprite advertisement campaign, for example, that promotes a transgender lifestyle that will be seen by millions of impressionable children. Or how about Gillette's massively disappointing and disliked commercial that took issue with so-called toxic masculinity? Are these the other initiatives that corporations will be forcing on an unsuspecting public with the stamp of papal authority? Personally, I've never heard Pope Francis speak out against these extremely provocative ideas. Perhaps even more worrying is that many companies compelled to prove they are taking a stand on behalf of the latest cause celeb have enthusiastically jumped aboard the Black Lives Matter juggernaut, which critics, of which there is no shortage, even among the black American population, say works to the disadvantage of other races, not least white Americans, who become the bane of Western civilization overnight. Is this the sort of equality big business will be promoting with the quiet blessing of the Vatican in their woke bid to become more equal and diverse? Will corporations begin to promote particular groups of people at the expense of others? After all, the Trump administration was just forced to take executive action against critical race theory inside the government, while academia is now rampant with lectures teaching the evils of the ignoble white man. Are we on the precipice of a new age of racism in the United States and elsewhere, where the historic tables are turned with the help of corporate America? Although Pope Francis may have the best intentions at heart in promoting this sort of dialogue between the Vatican and the corporate world, unless there is real involvement by the Church to rein in corporate power, it will become a wasted opportunity in very short order. No kidding. The Council for Inclusive Capitalism is nothing more and nothing less than a cynical PR stunt for corporate power that allows their controversial initiatives, heavily steeped in the rapacious accumulation of profit as well as the promotion of dangerous woke values, to win the seal of approval from one of the most powerful religious authorities on the planet. Such a program really amounts to an act of mindless virtue signaling from the Catholic Church, which has fallen out of favour of late, and a cheap opportunity for the corporate world to conceal its behaviour behind a shroud of morality and saintliness. It would have been far more effective and symbolic had Pope Francis committed himself to a contract with the people, with his true followers, in the fight against corporate power. Instead, he made a pact with the devil. And what can you say? That all that means is business as usual. This is the lifelong history of the Catholic Church, has been in bed with greed and power. When I was a younger man, there was a saying, all roads lead to Rome. And I thought it was just a kind of anecdotal thing. And now that I am an older and slightly wiser person, I know exactly what that saying means. All roads do in fact lead to Rome. Okay, well, if you've enjoyed this article, please like, comment and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. Bye.